Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back with another lecture. Like last time we discussed about drama, the introduction towards the concept of drama and the different types of drama. We are going to continue with that same lecture, but this time we are going to talk about the study of drama. Before that, let's quickly recap what we already discussed. Last time I talked about what is drama. It is the performing arts. It is that literature that is performed on stage or behind a screen. It has a script, but the person who makes or break the drama are the actors, the performers. So a drama is never done by a single person. It is performed by many people. It is written by a person, a playwright, and it is performed by actors on a stage or behind TV screen. Basically, when it comes to a drama, it is the most popular form of entertainment for most people because not everyone is going to read a text or a novel. Most people find it a little tedious and do not even have the vocabulary to read an entire book. But when it comes to drama, since it is visual, they do not have to imagine everything. It becomes easier for them to consume the story. Dramas are also the most popular media that is explored in Pakistan. And when it comes to drama and its type, we have different types like tragedy, comedy, tragic comedy, melodrama, or romantic dramas. But we will not be going into detail about them because we discussed them last time. Today, we will be focusing on how do you study a drama. So before that, imagine a scene. Imagine you come across a page that says, a dark room, a single chair, a man enters slowly, holding a letter. He pauses, then whispers, "It's over." Now, let me ask you, would you rather read this stage direction on paper, or would you prefer to watch it performed on stage or in a film? Briefly pause on that, think about that, and then explain what do you believe about that. Most of us would often prefer to watch it, obviously, because drama is not just words on a page, it's performance, action, and spectacle. The way the dialogues are delivered makes an impact. The simple choice between reading and watching shows us the very heart of drama. It is literature written to be performed. It is not meant to be read. Now, when it comes to the definition of it, let's quickly revise it. Drama is the dramatic or performing arts. However, it combines the verbal with a number of non-verbal or optical and visual means, including the stage, the scenery, the shifting of scenes, facial expressions, gestures, makeup, prop, and lighting. This emphasis is reflected in drama itself because it is a performance. It is to do or to act. It is a representation done by actors. So, now let's talk about drama as a text versus drama as a performance. In literature, a drama is a portrayal of fictional or non-fictional events through the performance of written dialogue. Like right now, I'm speaking dialogues. Either it can be in the form of prose, simple language, or poetry, beautiful, aesthetic, rhythmic language. Dramas can be performed on stage, on film, or even radios. Though the radio trend is a little old at this point, dramas are typically called plays in literature, and their creators are known as playwright or dramatist. Drama is unique both because it is a text as well as a performance. Unlike a poem or a novel, a play on paper is only half the story. It requires actors, stages, and the performance to make it come alive. Therefore, studying drama means not only analyzing its words, but also imagining how it would look and sound on stage. So, what makes a drama so dramatic and so compelling to watch? To make their plays dramatic, playwrights strive to progressively build the audience's feelings of tension and anticipation as the story develops. Dramatic tension builds as the audience keeps wondering, what happens next? What happened to my favorite character? What is going to what is going to happen to these people? The anticipation sometimes kills you. The anticipation is the outcome of all those events that the drama explains or explores. In a mystery, the dramatic tension builds throughout the plot until an exciting or unanticipated climax is revealed. Maybe you found out the murderer of a thriller story. So, next is the structure of a drama. When it comes to dramatic structure, it refers to the way a play is divided into parts, just as a book is divided into sections and those sections are divided into chapters. Plays are divided into acts and scenes. Again, like books, plays sometimes also include prologue and epilogue. Prologues are a chunk before the actual story begins, introducing the characters perhaps, and epilogue is the story after the conclusion, what happened with the characters. Like for example, there's a story in A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. The story revolves around the protagonist finding her own worth in a household where the husband does not even consider her a human being. He considers his own wife like a doll. The prologue of that story is the protagonist, Nora, the female, going throughout her life, while the epilogue may be her after leaving her toxic husband. So that is just one example of a prologue and an epilogue. How the story is laid out is also central to achieving a success in a play. It has to include a beginning, a middle, and an end, because obviously if a story is not having a satisfying conclusion, we are not going to watch it. Plays may also have subplots, which are smaller stories that allow the audience to follow the journey of different characters and events within the plot. Plays also feature an element of conflict, which does not necessarily mean a fight or an argument, but instead an obstacle that needs to be overcome. Like last time I mentioned, the conflict can be internal or external. Like if I'm struggling with my existence, for the story to move forward, I need to come to terms with my life, with my happiness. Otherwise, there's no change in the story. A typical dramatic structure is usually linear. It follows a chronological sequence of events. The events occur in a proper sequence, like the first event will take place a little earlier in time, while the later event will take place a little later. These steps, mostly a plot includes the following steps. First is exposition. Exposition introduces your setting, your characters, and the main conflict. While the exposition is developed, after that we have the rising action. It is when the complexity of the story reaches its peak or slowly reaches towards its peak. The story moves forward. Then the climax. Climax is the point of highest tension where the fate of our heroes is bound to change, where the story takes a drastic turn, or maybe it is a twist that you did not expect. Then after a climax, we have a falling action. A falling action is when the story slowly comes towards its resolution. What is a resolution? Resolution is when the conflict resolves itself, sometimes happily, sometimes tragically. For example, a very famous play is Romeo and Juliet. It is also by Shakespeare, but most people have heard the story of Romeo and Juliet. The exposition shows the feud between the two families. By the way, for those of you who do not know the story of Romeo and Juliet, let me give a little recap. The story of Romeo and Juliet is of two people who love each other, but they cannot be together because their family hates each other. So it's basically a family drama of sort. And in the end, since they are teenagers, they end with the worst possible conclusion. So talking about the different stages here, the exposition of this story will include the feud of the story being introduced, the feud between the family members and the introduction of our characters. While the climax is the point where Romeo and Juliet realize the things are not going to have a happy ending, and the resolution here is when they commit double suicide. They end their life because they realize they do not have an other option. So the story is not happy by any means, it's a tragedy. So the conclusion can be happy or not. Now, before we move towards the next step, I have a little task for you guys. Consider any Pakistani drama serial that you enjoyed. It can be Humsafar maybe, or Parvarish, the recent drama, or any other drama that you love. Imagine the protagonist, the male and female protagonist, and the main conflict between them, the misunderstanding and the separation caused by that misunderstanding, and how that misunderstanding is resolved, leading to a reunion or maybe a heartbreak. You have to basically discuss about these steps. What is the conflict there? How did the story's exposition start, and how was it resolved? Next, let's talk about the people behind the play, who perform, who bring the story to life, the characters. The characters are not created by narration alone, but by speech and action. The protagonist, the antagonist, the supporting roles all matter. They are the ones around which the entire story moves. Protagonist is the main hero of the story, while antagonist is the one who opposes him. Without your characters, you can never have a story because they are the ones having a conflict. Next, talking about dialogue. Dialogue is at the core of a drama. Unlike a novel or a poem where the poet can explain certain things or a novelist gives the setting, in a drama, everything is explored through dialogues. And who is delivering those dialogues? The actors. How an actor delivers his dialogues is extremely important because he is the one, or she is the one, who is going to make you familiar with the characters. So, Hamlet's soliloquy is famous not because of the narration, but because of Hamlet's own dialogue. It is a classic example, even though at this point it's very old. I mentioned it last time as well, to be or not to be, that is the question. So, to develop a suspension of disbelief for the audience and to create a successful play, the actors are the most important, including the script. The script is important, but if the actor does not perform well, you will never find the drama interesting or believable. That's why most of us remember the actor's name more than the director's name, even though there is a whole cast behind the drama you have watched. Throughout their performance, through their words, their decisions, not just the narrator, you know the actors are performing something, how they deliver something, their gestures, their body language. This is how a character is developed. So each actor has a different expression of the same character. Next is the direction and the visuality behind a drama. Stage directions explain movements, gestures, and setting off the drama. They are as important as dialogue in shaping meaning. Often they are ignored. People do not pay attention to them, but they're extremely important. They give life to the characters. Then the visual elements like the costume. If the costume is not accurate to the time period or the fantasy setting that you're watching, you will not find it believable. The stage design, the effect, everything is what leads to the interpretation of a story. For example, in a dark gothic story, you will have environment that is extremely dark, maybe rainy. Most of the times it's at night, like any Batman movies, most of them are in night or have a dark background. In contrast to those, if you have a happier comedy sort of a story, like a cartoon that is a lot more relaxing, a Disney movie like let's say Snow White. They will have colorful and vibrant costumes in contrast to something that is a little darker. Talking about drama, let's give a classic example of Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. It is the story of a man who is entrapped in his own house. The boxed in house represents the entrapment of the main character, Willie, who struggles from depression and anxiety. He is unable to leave his house. Now, next, let's discuss certain approaches to studying literature. When it comes to literature, you have textual analysis. You read and dissect the text to study the themes, the motives, and the structure on the page. Next is the important one, performance. Looking at the images, the style, the audience's reaction, they also add to the story. And also the historical context behind the drama is important to make sense of the story. For example, if an epic is meant to be performed on stage, if you are meant to think politically rather than emotionally, the stage is going to contribute to that. You will have certain elements to that. Lastly, comparative approach. You compare different plays by different maybe you are discussing the same play by different production houses, Shakespeare in English versus Urdu adaptations, or maybe different plays by the same writer. Comparative study shows the shift in meaning, the shift in style of writing. Now, let's conclude today's lecture. Remember, a drama is not fully alive on the page. It is meant to be performed. Studying drama means analyzing structure, dialogue, stage direction, but also thinking about how a play works in front of an audience. That's why drama clubs are extremely important. Drama teaches us that literature is not only written words, but living actions, a bridge between art and life. That is all for today's lecture. Till next time, Allah Hafiz.